Welcome! You're cooking with Mrs. Salisbury. Today we're going to make Mrs. Salisbury's Homestyle Bread. It's my recipe, and we're going to be making 2 loaves. Why would you only make 1 loaf? We can have one, slice it, put it in the refrigerator, wrap the other loaf up when it's cool, and put it in the freezer, slice it for use later. We know what will be in our bread because we're making it. No chemicals, no preservatives. So with that, I warmed up this glass bowl, and I'm using glass so you can see through it. We begged for a pottery bowl that would hold that heat a little bit better, but I warmed the bowl up with some warm water and emptied it out. And with the water for bread, it needs to be, like I said before in our cinnamon roll sessions, it needs to be about the same temperature as your body. About 98.6, it can be a little bit warmer. If you get it too hot, about 130, you could kill the yeast. We don't want to do that. So I just check it with my finger. It's about the temperature of my body or a little bit warmer. We're good to go. So I get down and I look eye level and I look eye level. So we have 3 cups of warm water. 3 cups of warm water. We have, remember, it's for 2 loaves. So we have 3 cups of warm water. We have a ½ cup of honey. If you don't have honey, you can also use 2/3 cup of white sugar. I oiled the inside because sticky ingredients like molasses or honey will slide right out. And you can also use a spoon to get the rest of it out if you want to be a little bit faster, but it'll slide right out quite fast. So that's good. Next, we have our water and our honey. Next, we're going to add our yeast. Yeast loves sugar. So 1 package of yeast is 2 1/4 teaspoons. I like active dry yeast. Now, I buy my yeast in bulk, so if you use a scant tablespoon, just a little less than a tablespoon, that can be a package of yeast. A tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So I have 2 scant tablespoons of yeast, of the active dry yeast. Just put it in. Then we have 1 cube of butter. Again, this is for 2 loaves of bread. 1 cube of butter, and I cut it into cubes so it's just room temperature. You can see it's soft, it's just room temperature. You can always save the butter wrappers and use those to butter your pans with. So I have 1 in here already, so I won't save that one. Okay, next, I'm looking and I see the yeast is even starting to bubble as we're talking. I'm going to stir this up just a little bit. It's starting to bubble. The reason that we put the yeast in with the warm water and sugar or honey, you can even put it in with water, we want to see if it's working. It's called proofing the yeast. I always say proving it. I want to prove that it's working before I go through the flour and make my bread. So I can see it's starting to bubble. Okay. The next thing is we need 1 cup of non-fat dried milk. If you use the powdered milk, you can save your fresh milk for other things you want it for your cereal, for tea, for pudding, whatever you use it for. Non-fat dried milk has already been heated and it's dried. So you can just use it and it's very fast. If you use fresh milk, you have to get down, you have to see it steaming, you have to see little bubbles form, take it off, you have to let it cool about the temperature of your body or a tiny bit warmer. You can't use it when it's too hot. But when you do that, you're killing the enzymes so it doesn't interfere with the yeast. We have our water, our honey, our yeast, our butter, our non-fat milk. I'm going to give this a stir. This is so fast to make. You need to make bread. It is so much fun. By the way, kids always love to make bread, and so it's a nice activity for them. The powdered milk will look a little bit clumpy. Don't worry about it. It's just fine. It's just fine. It will dissolve. No big deal. And the butter, since it's room temperature, is melting. I'm just going to take the spoon, cut it up a tiny bit, but it's room temperature, no worries. Okay, Next, I use bread flour. Bread flour is higher in gluten. Gluten is a structure bread rises on. So higher gluten means your bread's going to have a better texture, but there's other things we don't want high gluten flour for. Let's say cookies. So bread, I want that gluten because the carbon dioxide bubbles from the yeast get caught like in this mesh. The gluten is like a mesh and it gets caught in it and rises. So I want the bread flour. If you said I only have all-purpose, you can use it. I've used it before, but when you try the bread flour, you're gonna say, oh my gosh, I can't believe the difference in the texture. Okay, so with the bread flour, we're gonna need about 7.5 to 8 cups of flour. Make sure that you fluff the flour up, you spoon it in, level it off. I have 7 cups here right now. Sometimes they'll say add about half the flour and then half again. The only reason they're saying that is just so you don't have poof flour all over the place. Other than that, there's not a reason. So I'm just going to stir this. As soon as I stir that in a little bit, I have 7.5 cups of flour right here. I'm going to put the rest in. And I'm going to stir this. I'm not putting my hands in yet. Again, I don't want to wear the dough. We want to eat it, not be wearing it. So I'm going to stir it with the spoon right now. I'm waiting to put the salt in. As I mentioned before, the French chef and boulangerie in Paris said, allow the yeast to work, wait to put the salt in. But you have it sitting right next to you or you're going to forget it. So I have the flour in, and so now I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of salt because it's for 2 loaves of bread. Salt regulates the yeast. I always say it's like the sheriff in town. It regulates the yeast. Settle down, you're getting too big, settle down. It also gives the flavor. So I'm going to stir this. This is so easy. Anytime we know how to do something, it's not hard. So you'll know how to do this now and it won't be hard at all. You'll say, that was all? That was it? Yep. So then in this bowl right next to me, I have some more bread flour because we're going to need probably another half cup, but I just wanted to see how much flour we'd need, and I have a little bit extra for rolling out. So I'm just, see, and we have a nice dough. I have another half cup right here. I'm not going to put it all in at once. I'm just going to put in some. At this point, I will put my hands in. As you see, we have a nice dough. I'll put my hands in. I always have a little extra flour in case we need it. And we'll probably need all of this half cup, but I just wanted to make sure if we needed it, need the needed, right? So anyway, here we go. I needed all that half cup, and I have a bit more if we need it over here. So let's get this kneaded in. I always knead the bread in the bowl because if we knead the bread in the bowl, then what happens is we have the mess in the bowl and not all over the counter. So we're going to knead this. Oh, this is already a nice dough. This will make, again, 2 nice loaves of bread. Okay. It's sticking a little on the bottom. So again, I always have about an extra half cup of flour. And once we have that half cup of flour, I will have it right next to me so I can use it. I don't want it to be a stiff dough. It's a medium consistency dough, but I don't want it to be dry. So I'm going to show you this dough here in just a second. It needs to be smooth. And I bring it up to the center. Bring it up to the center. So 7.5 to 8 cups of bread flour. You get about, maybe about 13, 14 cups in a 5-pound bag. Not bad, but it's not totally smooth. I'm also going to take my bench scraper, like the boulangerie chef in Paris told me, cut the bread dough apart, because when you cut it apart, it makes the gluten strands even stronger and you'll have even a better texture. And I love that cooking tip. That is a great one. Okay, so I knead this back together. I keep bringing it up to the center. Okay, turn it over. I'm going to cut it apart 3 times. And I'm not nice about it, remember. I just take a bench scraper if you don't have one. You could use a table knife, it's fine. No problem. Cut it apart. It doesn't have to be totally cut apart. See? Okay. It's a nice texture to this dough. It's sticking just a tiny bit, so I'll just flick a tiny bit of flour, not a bunch, just a little. I keep bringing it back up to the middle. I want it to be totally smooth. Remember, yeast dough loves to be kneaded. Quick breads, I say let go of them, don't overwork them. Yeast bread, you can knead. And that's the fun part. All right, let's see how we're doing. Bread will rise faster if it's warmer outside. So be aware of that. May rise faster. One more time. I think this is 3. If you happen to do it 4, it won't hurt. It won't hurt a bit. Now it's starting to make that sound I really like to hear when it comes up off the bottom of the bowl when it's really smooth. I'll show you again what I mean by that, and I'm sure you'll be able to hear it here in a second. Bowl making some noise there. Now, there's just a little that you possibly can hear. That's because that dough is totally smooth. That is called totally smooth. Okay, that's it. You saw the exact amount of time I needed it. No big deal. I need you to cover it with plastic wrap, and I need you to put it in a warm place to rise. It can be next to the stove. If you put it on the stove, remember, electric stoves, that back right-hand burner is usually the exhaust for it. You cannot put it back there. It'll start baking the bread before it's risen. Not good. Sometimes stoves have the exhaust across the whole back, and if they do, you cannot put it on either of the back burners. You can put it on a front burner if you want, or you can put it alongside. I let mine rise for about 45 minutes until it's doubled in bulk. I have one ready. Let's bring it over. I let my bread rise, as I said, about 45 minutes. If it goes to 50, it's all right, even an hour. You don't want to keep letting it rise or the cells get enlarged, and also the yeast kind of loses its power along the way. If you said, I forgot to set the timer, I'm like, okay, if it doubled in bulk, and you remember what the other bread looked like, I'm like, you can use 2 fingers. I hear that carbon dioxide, psh. And if the indentation remains and it doesn't cover over it, that means it's risen long enough. You still see the indentation, we know it's risen long enough. Plus I set the timer. Okay, on this, let me move this over. I'm going to put a little bit of flour, not a lot, just a little bit of flour on plastic wrap, because that way my mess stays right here, and then when I'm done I can just fold it up. Since this is 2 loaves of bread, I need to cut it apart. Sharp knife, cut it right down the middle. Don't pull it apart, cut it apart. 2 pieces. Okay. Then I'm going to, see how this is flat on this side, nice and rounded, this. I'm going to put it down, I'm going to push it down. Like I said, it's a medium consistency dough. You can put a tiny bit of flour, as I can set this here, a tiny bit of flour over it, but you don't need very much. Then you're going to need to roll it. Oh, probably about 1/4 of an inch thick. It's got to be rolled out. Let's see how we're doing the rolling pin. So I'm trying to get it to be a long rectangle. come across this way, come across this way. So let's look here. So that looks good. Just about 1/4 of an inch thick. This is just a little bit. Remove that ding there. Okay, so then we're going to take it, we're going to start rolling it up. And do you see how I kind of pull it a little bit? Again, I don't want too much flour. I want it to stick together. So see how I'm flicking some of that flour off? And I'm kind of giving it a little bit of a pull. So easy. Now at this point I'm going to turn it around so you can see it. We can take care of that in a minute. Now you see this is kind of rounded here. No worries, I'm just going to pull that bread dough up a bit. So again, I'm bringing it back just a little bit. See me pulling it back just a little bit. Now I'm going to bring it up here at the top and I'm going to pinch it shut. Pinch, pinch, pinch. You'll say, this is rounded, bring it over, it's okay. Pinch, 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 all the way across. If that came undone, let's put that back together, that twirl bit, that's fine. We'll pinch that shut. Like, go like this at the ends. Still need to pinch this shut, so let's pinch that shut again. It's unwilling, a little bit unwilling, but it'll be fine. Then I kind of go like this on that, the bottom part that was pinched. I just kind of rolled a little bit. Now, let's talk about bread pans. Bread pans, there's the difference. This is a thin aluminum one my grandma gave me when I was about 17, and I have buttered it, heavily buttered it. And we can use that. I also have a composite one from Matt Fur, which is excellent, makes beautiful bread. If it's too thick, it won't brown the bread, and it's not you, it's the bread pan. So there are pans to bake bread in, and then there are pans that are for a pound cake. So I'm going to put this, let's see which one. Let's put it in the long Matt Fur one. M-A-T-F-E-R, I believe. So I'm going to press it down across the top. I'm going to cover it in a minute and I'll let it rise. In the meantime, here's the next one. Let's move this over a bit, put a little bit of flour on. It's so fast, you guys. This is it. This is it. I'm going to let it rise for 45 minutes until it's about an inch over the top of the pan. About an inch over the top of the pan. As you hear, our dog Sachi has joined our cooking demonstration here. That's fine, Sachi. You're welcome. Okay, about 1/4 of an inch, remember. Okay, and then I try to get a nice rectangle. Okay, so then we're going to roll it again. So we'll just start here. I'll come this way this time so you can see me. Dust off any of that extra flour. Give it a little bit of a tug to make sure it's pulled back. This one is beautiful. Let me turn it this way, I guess you can see it. Then here, we're gonna make sure that's a rectangle. So we'll bring it right over, bring it up, pinch it shut, bring it up, pinch it shut, bring it up, pinch it shut, all the way across. Very easy, simple. So when it's like this, remember I just roll that so it kind of seals it even more. If you think you need to repinch it, then do so. And put this right in here. You'll say, oh, that's a little bit. All you have to do is push in on this side. Let me move this over. Push in on this side a bit. It fits right in perfectly. Press down. I saw the boulangerie chef do that too. I thought, oh, I'm glad. I already knew to do that. I must have watched Grandma a lot. Go like this, push down, push down. In 45 minutes, we'll cover these, let them rise in 45 minutes. I'll let them rise about 1 inch over the top of the pan, about 1 inch over the top. I'm going to bake them, and I will bake it at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. Then I will make a foil tint, just a little piece of foil, put it over the top. You'll say it kind of slides off. I'm like, that's fine. That'll help keep it so it doesn't brown too much. And I will bake it then an additional 17 minutes. So 20 minutes, tinted, and then 17. When you come back, I'll show you some nice loaves of bread. Our bread is out of the oven. I took the foil tints off that were just loosely on them. We baked them for 20 minutes, put a foil tint on for 17 minutes, 17 to 19 minutes. They sound hollow. I know they're done. A beautiful golden brown. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you next time, Cooking with Mrs. Salisbury. Subscribe and like me.